Sure.
Good morning.
Morning.
Enjoying London?
Yeah.
So obviously the big reveal yesterday was General Thrawn. Was that an organic introduction into the story, or was that more fan expectation that kind of encouraged you to introduce that character into the story?
It was definitely something that had been thought about a long time at Lucasfilm. Ever since Story Group leader Carrie Hart and I were talking about Star Wars Rebels, and we were thinking of what villains could we possibly bring into that story. Thrawn was always on the list, and we were just trying to figure out what's the right moment and how big a deal do we make out of that. I think the biggest thing is you get a character like that everybody likes, that's a really great villain. You are cautious on a weekly series to put them into oh, he lost again, and darn, those crazy rebels got away from me, and you can't play him that way. He's way too smart. So it's a very similar problem I have with Vader, which is if our guys are around Vader too much, Vader's just going to take them out. So I had to supply an Ahsoka Tano to neutralize Darth Vader. Here I don't really have a lot I can supply to defend them against Thrawn. So it's going to get sticky because he's a big time. We want to treat him as a big time villain as much as a Darth Vader, but on the military strategic side of things.
Of course, we're talking about season 3, but is there a chance, of course, after watching Rogue One, that sometime before those both worlds related?
There's always a chance. It's a great phrase in Star Wars, there's always hope. And Simon Kinberg talked a little bit about it recently, and I think the great thing at Lucasfilm is you're seeing a little more of the type of continuity that we've been talking about coming to surfaces. The films are really setting down and in motion now, and as the series has been in production, and at Lucasfilm, we all know each other, and I'll see John go in the hallway, and John will be like, wouldn't this be great? I'll be like, that would be great. And so continuity can be as simple as that, something that two people working on a production really like and think is a fun idea. It doesn't always have to be a story-shifting, character-changing thing. It can be very simple things that we realize are meaningful to the fans because they're meaningful to us. So you never know. I won't promise anything, but when do I ever, right? So, sorry.
Hey guys, Tia, I'm really interested. Obviously, you get so much more backstory, and the reveal that you have this deep connection into characters from the Clone Wars and everything else. When did you get that reveal? When did Dave tell you about that, and how has that changed the way that you approach Sabine?
Well, I feel like Dave maybe clued me into things with Sabine season 3 earlier, or with more sort of forewarning than in seasons past, where it was like, hey, tomorrow when we record, this is what's happening in Sabine's life, or this is what happened in Sabine's life in the past. But this time I feel like he's talked me through more to give me a better understanding of what's to come, which is awesome because there is more to come. So that's exciting for me. But also I basically feel like I have a better understanding of who Sabine is, and also I'm just excited as a fan to get to sort of see her experience those things, and also like encounter people from her past that she, as I said yesterday, might be related to, some of them. And I feel like, with what's happening in our world now, and sort of stakes are higher for everyone. I mean, Kanan can't see, and Ezra's battle, it has this like internal battle between the dark side and the light side, and so all these crazy, and Ahsoka and Vader, obviously. I feel like Sabine is sort of being thrust into this leadership position, which I think she is happy to assume, but it's a lot. I mean, there's sort of pressure that she hasn't yet experienced, and then there's all this sort of backstory that comes into play. So it's been exciting, but also she's got a lot more going on, so there's a lot more sort of responsibility to treat it with care. Yeah.
And did Freddie and did they give you a pen to hold when you got to hold it?
People have been asking me on Twitter today about how, did I get to hold it, or was I making my own dark saber sounds? Which the answer, Stan made my dark saber sounds.
I make your dark saber sounds.
Freddie has like a cool thing. He whenever he has a lightsaber in his hand, he always sort of holds he does something, like a tactile thing. I don't remember what I did. I think I was just sort of steadying myself because I was like, oh my god, what is happening? I have a dark saber. Why? What do I do with it? Anyway, it's pretty exciting.
This one's for Sam. How big of a role does Darth Maul have this season, and what would you say his ultimate goal is?
Yeah, totally dangerous question. The thing about Darth Maul, and we've always had this in mind, that you can't overuse him. If you overuse him, it's not special anymore. And it's like Vader, to a slightly lesser degree, in that the threat gets diminished. If this guy isn't on his own, trying to figure out a bunch of stuff and trying to figure out his life and sort things, and he's focused entirely on the Ghost crew and on converting Ezra, things are going to get derailed pretty quick. But again, this is a character who has been through a lot in terms of what we've seen on screen. You have the stuff in Phantom Menace, obviously, and then in terms of Clone Wars, we were talking about this yesterday, that the part of the fun of that character is that he's constantly evolving. And we have to keep him constantly evolving from episode to episode and show new sides of him every time. And all the way through Clone Wars to now, there's always some sort of new element that we add every episode. And the reason for that, I think, storytelling, is that this guy, in some ways, is locked into a loop in his life and can't see beyond the loop, can't see beyond this repetitive motivation that he has, and that he would, rise up to power and then get knocked down, and rise up to power and get knocked down. Now he's rising again, but his tactics are almost, it's when we met Darth Maul, he was mad, right? He was insane in that cave. And one of the definitions of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I think one of the reasons we keep him evolving personally is that he does have a different perspective on things than he had before. And he's become a little bit more individual beyond the, just a single-minded weapon who wants revenge. But at the core of him, he's still as damaged and misguided as he ever was.
So everybody was pretty dazzled by the Grand Admiral Thrawn reveal, and I was too, admittedly. But no one's talking as much about Wedge. And so I was going to ask about Wedge and how you worked with that, especially with his mentions of Fulcrum in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath book. And we're seeing him after maybe Ahsoka, maybe he's a Fulcrum anymore. So can you talk about some of these things?
I don't know that Wedge likes to be talked about that much. I think that's how he survives the films. It's like Luke's going down the trench. You're gonna get to be back there, Wedge. Sorry. So Wedge doesn't say no man, I'm with you. He's like, I'm out. Wedge is probably the smartest pilot in the entire saga because he knows when to ditch.
You didn't see him on the attacking Starkiller base.
Quite literally,
yeah, I'm in Hawaii right now.
Where is Wedge in the galaxy? He did his time. So, Wedge is in the story as a result of the fact that we're inching ever closer to the time period of A New Hope. When you get to that time period and the rebellion is much more formative than it used to be, you're going to start to see those characters appear in the story and somehow intersect with the Star Wars Rebels characters. Initially, the Star Wars Rebels was about just one group of people that was against the Empire that had a loose connection to other groups of people. Sabine wasn't even sure if there were other people really fighting, or was it just Hera's kind of noble act to fight against the Empire. So we've shown, as promised, it grow bit by bit until they're starting to feel a little bit confident that they have strength. That's always a danger as well, because you think you have a strength and you have to be careful what comes to meet that strength. But those characters, a character like Wedge, we all thought it would be fun to see him. We couldn't use someone like Biggs, because if you bring Biggs in, then you're really crossing close to the Luke Skywalker timeline, and we're very careful about, you know, saying to people where we are in relation to that. But Biggs has a fantastic mustache, and we were all obsessed with how that would look in the animated universe.
Is that no? When
that
it
was
comes
a
to-
prime motivator to use Biggs, but actually,
the truth is, you know how cloth is expensive
Yeah.
to render. Mustaches are equally as expensive, if not
not
more.
so much, Sam, but that's nice.
Well, Biggs's Biggs's mustache would have broken the bank. That's a special mustache.
But would it have a mustache?
Oh my God, he's growing.
Why wouldn't he? My goodness, I mean, I think
He had it since age
Out of
12.
the womb, he came out with a mustache?
That's right.
Biggs, Dark Lighter, it's like the greatest name ever.
Although I think there is, can I spoil this? There's a novel coming out about the origins of his mustache.
Why do you promise people?
Hey, I've got here. One of the most fascinating things about Rebels that you guys sort of created was the idea of Inquisitors and their interaction with the dark side. And now it looks like the ones we've met at least are dead, but you know, there's 5 and 7. How much is that going to play into this season? And I mean, because we already have a formidable villain. How's that?
It's true, we do have a formidable villain. I think that, again, I look at it in terms of, as I get closer to A New Hope, I can't see a lot of the things that I could have years before it in the story. When Tarkin's talking to Vader and he's saying, you know, their fire has gone out of the galaxy, referring to the Jedi, it feels like that ancient religion and things he's referring to around the Force happened a long time ago. It's one of those things, too, I remember being a kid, believing that, oh wow, what Tarkin's talking about was a very long time ago. But you realize as you get older that actually happened in his lifetime, this snuffing out of the power of the galaxy. So that's one of those things, you mature, you get a better sense of time. So I didn't think that you could have too many Inquisitor-like elements intersecting with our Rebel story anymore, because that starts to get continuity clashy for me, because Tarkin would say, oh, their fire's gone out of the galaxy, except for that other group of weirdos you hang out with, would be kind of strange, you know. So you have to have that literally diminishing. And as you notice, we have a good dark side presence in the season in Sam here. So we try to balance that in every season, where we have a strong dark side of the Force element and a strong kind of combat rebellion element going on, because Hera is going to be able to deal with this most likely, and Kanan and Ezra are going to get tasked with this more likely. So that's how we attack the kind of villainy in each season.
Okay, we're gonna go with the next one. Don't make me sorry.
In terms of animation, it's quite rare that the development of a series or the characters changes as much as we have on the Rebel season 3. And now people look at the trend, how do I be young script?
I don't know. We did it in Clone Wars once, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka all got a pretty big overhaul. She aged quite dramatically as well. You know, there, instead of, you know, getting a haircut, her leg got longer, you know. So it's just something that I like to do. I think it's nice because we're telling an ongoing story, so of course they should get older. Yeah, it does. And, you know, when I watched the series as a kid called Robotech, if you look at, you know, Rick at the beginning of Robotech and Rick at the end, he actually has a pretty different character design. I mean, it's very subtle. So we decided to do more of a time kind of jump feeling, especially after the events of last season. You get this feeling that the Rebels have had a period where they're all trying to cope with that, and they've actually drifted apart to some degree. And as a result of that, you know, teenagers often make dramatic changes to themselves. They'll start to dress differently, they'll start to cut their hair differently, dye their hair differently, and I think you need to relate to kids that way. So if anything, I think the kids that have been growing up with Rebels will understand what Ezra's doing. They'll understand this change that got necessitated, and even Kanan, right? I mean, Kanan kind of stops shaving evidently and throws his hair out. The first drawing I did of season 3 Kanan to express to the writers what I wanted was kind of a version of him as the dude from Big Lebowski, and like a robe on and flip-flops, and he was getting coffee, like not even... No, not season 4, but it's the feeling of, you know, he's a bit lost. For everything he gained Kanan in strength and clarity of who or what he might be, he couldn't take the agency to stop Ezra and Ahsoka from what he could see was probably a bad decision to side with this guy. And it really came back to bite him. So he has reached, as he reached one level of becoming a Jedi Knight, now he has to try to ascend to another. That being a Jedi Knight at this time isn't enough. That's thinking like a combatant. And he has to learn kind of the higher now path of the Force, which Yoda and everybody else have to learn before him. So that's what you're seeing Kanan evolve through as a Jedi.
Is it difficult striking a balance between bringing characters back for fan service and bringing in characters that service the plot?
No, because we don't. I don't think we are fan servicing ever. I mean, it's fantastic that everybody likes Thrawn. It's just that everybody making the show likes Thrawn too, and most of the people making the show are fans. So we're servicing ourselves, I guess. You know, it's always a big downer when you do stuff. That's why I've always said, like, I know odd things, like, I love wolves and I'm very careful. I put them in the story, but they're not like, it's not suddenly like Star Wars wolves, because that would be self-serving in a terrible Sith way. So, but the fans, by the time the fans react to something, in all honesty, it's so impossible for us to put it into production. Like, we've already executed this season. Like, we've written it, it's happening, it's in animation, it's in lighting dailies every day. So if there was something about Thrawn that people didn't like, you're like, oh, you got a long road to hoe now. Like, it's just, it's not the way our productions work. So we just try to hope that because we're all big fans who grew up with this, that people like the same way. And I don't expect it to be universally liked either. I've learned that over Clone Wars, and I can't allow it to move me in any way because I'm trying to tell a story and be truthful to that story primarily. So sometimes I have to ask people to be shocked by something that they might not like and then come around to the understanding of why we did it that way. And I've seen that as well, and Ahsoka's one of those. Nobody understood what we were doing by having this young girl be a Padawan to Anakin Skywalker. And a lot of people are like, wait, what is this? And some people are like, that's cool. But a lot of people didn't like her nicknaming us some precocious attitude and that she was kind of, telling Anakin what to do. But when you look at it now and you see that she's a young person, inexperienced, probably afraid of being thrown into a war zone, and by the end of it, she was a more mature young adult that made her own decisions and had her own way of doing things and respected and cared for Anakin and Obi-Wan, you go, oh wow, that's actually like a kid. So, you have to trust your process and your creative team to get you through, and we've been pretty lucky so far.
I'd like to point out that when you started doing Rebels, he's not actually lying to you, which he does often. But what he just said
Shades of truth.
Shades of truth, a certain point of view.
There you go.
When he started doing Rebels, I remember we were hanging out at LDAC. I was like visiting, and you were telling me about your view, the overall view of where you thought the series was going to go. And this is before anything had aired. I think you were about to go and show me some episodes. And what he described is what is evolving, now. I mean, and how season 1 and the tone of that, and how it related just, later on and where things would go. And it's the kind of thing, everyone would think, oh, Thrawn's fan service. Thrawn couldn't happen in season 1. Thrawn couldn't happen in season 2. This is the time that this character can show up and tonally for how the story needs to go. So there's a lot, just being a guy who occasionally visits, I see a lot of forethought go into these things, and it's very deliberate. It's not like, what are the kids going to like next week? They don't know. Like you said, the production does not allow for that kind of reactivity. You have to think way, way ahead. And I mean, we were talking about Darth Maul years ago coming into Rebels. So
there's been a lot of character progression. There also seems to be a lot of vehicle progression. We saw an A-Wing with 2 pilots. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with the vehicles and how they potentially fit into A New Hope? Because obviously we don't see that sort of vehicle further on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll tell you why there's an A-wing with 2 seats. It's rather simple. This is the not fun answer. I'm sure Henry Gilroy and Steve Melchik, they're great at that Starship Smackdown stuff and coming up with really nerdy reasons why. I had a plot that needed to get 2 people to a planet. And I had very few starships that could do that. And the A-wing had 1 seat, and I was like, all right, well, what I want you to do is gut behind the front seat, move that back and put a 2nd seat, because I don't want to, you know, I'd have the budget to create a whole new ship, and it would be weird if they had a whole new ship just to fly them to that planet. But we call that the A-wing trainer.
That's from West End Games, bro. I was about to back you up. You didn't even go for it.
There you go.
West End Games, all of the starships had trainer variants that had a 2nd seat for a trainer and a pilot. So what you're talking, you don't have to.
I don't know that, but see, I'm being truthful as opposed to what you said earlier when I lie.
But I'm the dark side.
The truth is that it was a production necessity. Now, I am mostly relieved to learn
That there is
right now.
an in-universe
Wow.
explanation, yeah.
Awesome.
You learn something new every day.
I still would have done it the way I did it. I really wouldn't have changed anything I
It's
did.
not necessarily in universe, but it works. And
Yeah.
is Sam in for a pay rise?
Constantly, that's why he visits so often. But I think that with vehicles, again, we're seeing kind of a progression more to what you saw in A New Hope. So you get Y-Wings now. The Y-Wings in the 2 pilot episodes of the season 3, the premiere episodes, are actually intermediate Y-Wings, and that they have some of the flanging that they had in the Clone Wars. And all of them were designed to be removable. So we took the design from Clone Wars and we actually busted it up. And so you're seeing that from Clone Wars to Rebels to A New Hope, how the Rebels kind of re-engineered to be the really lightweight bomber that it becomes in the original trilogy. So there is stuff like that. You know, the designs already exist. The closer I get to this, I could make an ATDP in season 1. I would probably now use just an ATST forward. So I like to bring those things in line. You have more room when you're farther away from one of the movies, less room as you get closer.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for coming. I was wondering about each of your relationships with the Legends continuity from the past. I expect quite a long answer from Sam.
I always expect a long answer from Sam.
That's right. That's right. You mean our relationship in terms of reading it, checking it out?
Yes, personally.
I go back to the West End Games stuff, which is where all that stuff really originated. Those were the West End Games source books were the stuff that they gave Timothy Zahn to research when he was writing Heir of the Empire and stuff like that. So that's where the rabbit hole began for me, was West End Games. I mean, we all grew up with Star Wars, but I think that's when I really became, that's when it became this universe that you could explore and think about. And I learned about lightsaber crystals and a guy named Senator Palpatine and all this stuff. And you're just like, what does this all mean? And are we ever going to see this? So going forward, seeing all these things, and also the fact that the guys on the team, the guys and the girls, are putting a lot of care into bringing some of the better Legends ideas to life. Thrawn is an example. But also you see some spaceship designs that we haven't seen, you know, you see the YT-2400 and you see a few things out there that are just great ideas that, you know, we haven't seen in a little bit.
Yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Well, I mean, as some of you might already know, I mean, my experience probably started, I mean, my experience at Star Wars started when I was a little kid, but my immersion into Star Wars started when I got this job, and I got to be around Dave, and more so Sam now, but not so much at the beginning, obviously. And so, you know, being around Vanessa and Freddie and this guy, and sort of their enthusiasm and just breadth of their knowledge was inspiring. And that's when I started sort of trying to do my research and getting to be as much of a fan as I am now. So I have to be honest and say, basically, when I got this job.
Yeah, you've done the homework, which is all I require. I gave you a list of Clone Wars episodes to watch on Mandalore.
You did.
Stuff like that. And there's always things you can research. I mean, Sam's right. You know, walking into like a Walden bookstore and finding a role-playing manual that had all this information was fascinating as a kid. You know, you're Pablo Hidalgo, she and I talk about it all the time. We're like, wait a minute, why do we all know that? Why do we all know the word Mandalorian? That's not in the movies. Where did that come from? So we spent like a couple days figuring that out. We narrowed it down to one of the Star Wars sketchbooks that used to come out. And in there it's written Mandalorian armor. But we all keyed to that as kids. And something that I don't struggle with, but I'm very curious about today is the immediacy of it all and the complete immersion of it all for kids versus the discovery of it that we had. Everything's expected now. Everybody expects everything to blow up and be big. And they look for every kernel to uncover. Instead of it being something that we actively sought and had to go and find. And I think that there is a bit of a difference there. You know, it's like, I wanted to know every detail about Star Wars universe because of the lack of information that we had for it. You know, that was something that drove me. The card back of a Kenner figure was crucial because it's the only picture of that character we might get. You know, we had the storybook, we'd buy the record, every image was sacred. Now I can, you know, image search and find 100 images of stuff. So it's a completely different time, and there are a lot of pluses to that, but I also wonder about that. I think when you see the continuity chaos at times that the fans feel with themselves is because there's so much information out there, which is why Lucasfilm has had to say, hey guys, hey, look at this stuff here. This is going to be continuity for you. And it doesn't mean, it's never meant to me that there aren't good ideas in what was the EU and is now the Legends. But for me, I approach it the same way I did on Clone Wars, which is like, when I see it in a movie and when I see it in a TV series, that's very real to me because that's the original form of the art was a film. Now I work quite a bit crossing over with the people who are writing the comic books or novels to try to ensure continuity. But it is a big challenge on everybody's schedule, and the most honest answer I can give you. I think what's great at Lucasfilm is the interest and the drive by people to make it work is tremendous, because this generation is a generation made of fans that wants to get it right and give the fans the most authentic experience we can. And that's true from, you know, when JJ's helming Force Awakens, the big fan he is, to whatever other media we're creating, be it me in television. We got Pablo everywhere looking at continuity. You know, the games, people are all super huge fans. The guys running the Lego show are enormous fans. I mean, and that's, whenever you get together, you have that in common immediately. And we just go from there. And we're trying to make Star Wars that we all enjoy so that, you know, you guys will enjoy it too. You know, and that is, you've now heard in a lot of behind the scenes, that was such a focus of Abrams and Kazan. Is this going to be delightful? Is this going to excite you? Is this going to make you thrilled? And that's something that I think they did well, and we're all trying to follow, because you feel Star Wars. You watch it, but you don't have a convention like this if these people don't feel it. And I think that's what's so special about the saga.
Hi, Joelle from the Metro. I like your hat, Dave.
Thank you.
You look sharp, right? Looking sharp.
It's an anomaly.
So when are you going to make a Star Wars Rebels movie with live action actors in it? Because I'd watch that in a heartbeat.
Me too.
Would you?
I'd watch it. I'd do more things for it.
You'd have to DM. I'm sure.
Taylor and I ask the same question all the time.
That's great.
Just to each other. We wonder aloud.
You know, I'm sure the actors paid you well for that question. Freddie can be clever as the leader of the group. You know, if it made sense, if it's the right thing to do, I'm sure anything is possible. And that's what I love about Lucasfilm now, is anything is possible with our stories. I don't know when it would be, you know, but I mean, if I was to imagine in a timeline, I could imagine a world where, you know, 20 years from now, 25 years from now,
like
a long
actual
time in the
years?
future. Yes, actual years. There's a kid that watched Rebels, right? A kid that watched Rebels that becomes a filmmaker and says that was the part that was so important to me, that I want to make those characters come to life. And that would, I mean, that would be amazing to me. That would be great. If that happened, then I'd be like, wow, we did a really good job. because we inspired this kid to do this, and then we would watch it and go, oh, it's completely wrong. But no, we would, you know.
You'd be a consultant.
I don't know. Who knows where I'd be at that point? My goodness. But I think that's the way I look at it more there. I'm telling the story now, and for me, the fact that we're animated is just a type of artistic brush that we're painting this picture with. And I don't feel that the characters are any less valid. I don't feel they need stamped into live action to be real. And I think that people feel that way as well. They do such a great job performing the characters and giving voice to them, and the team at home does such a great job animating them and bringing them to life. So they are alive and they are real. If they cross over, that's great. It's like a cookie, but it's you know, it's not a requirement for me because Chopper's Chopper, you know, and I see him every day up on the Star Wars show. Somehow he got that gig, so you should talk to Chopper's agent because he's rolling around.
And he's far more difficult than the rest of us.
He is. He has a lot of demands. But thanks for asking, though. I appreciate it.
Good morning. I would like to know if we are going to know the origin of the Inquisitors soon, because that's one of the biggest secrets. Are we going to know more of them? Who are them?
Sure, we'll tell you right now. You want to talk?
No, Sam. No. 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 And no. And no.
Whoa.
Not anytime soon. Not for me at now, this point, today, would I tell you such a thing in any particular way. Since you asked specifically, will it be soon? It won't be now, it won't be in this room. So, sorry.
So wait, the no was not answering the question. The no was like, you're
Don't
not
help
going to
them,
answer the
Tia.
question.
Don't help them.
I was saying this
It's a great mystery, and some mysteries, you know, left unsolved are more interesting. You won't be disappointed when you have an answer, and then you're like, oh, so no. You see how that is? You need to train you more. You need to get in the flow of the no, and then the way you can go.
I ask these questions at recording sessions all the time, and I, for some reason, always I do the thing where I think there's going to be a different outcome. It's never the case. It's always like an answer like that.
Yeah, Dave has only got more cagey as time goes on.
It's
Clone Wars, you could get an answer out of him here
It's like
and
a
there.
dance, watching him like maneuver out of answering a question, and then it leaves me thinking like I got the answer, and then I'll leave and go, wait, but what did you just tell me?
You didn't say anything. You didn't say anything.
I will bend like a reed in the wind.
But never break.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
You gotta bring a kid with you.
Yeah. See, yeah. Were you there that time? Where was that celebration? Where that kid got the one answer that nobody knows?
Chopper's voice.
Yeah. I wonder if she ever spilled the beans on that. No? What a kid. I like that girl. Yeah. Tried to break her, she wouldn't do it.
So we're getting closer to A New Hope, and I'm curious, you know, when you have Empire and Return of the Jedi, if you could choose to kind of play before any of those two films in Star Wars Rebels in that universe, which of those films would you rather play?
Difficult decision that would be. Both periods are kind of, you know, because I grew up through them, the years in between films. So you had stuff like Splinter of the Mind's Eye that gave you a look at something, and that was something that reverberated with me because the cover to Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Ralph McQuarrie was kind of an influence on what I did last year on Malachor with I remember very clearly the hawk, the kind of red light that was shining below Vader, that was something that I used to look at that book sitting in my parents' nightstand, like, oh, Darth Vader, that's so cool. But I wasn't really old enough to read it, and it seemed kind of scary, so I wasn't going to pick it up. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'd be great stories to tell in either. There was Shadows of the Empire, right? That came after Empire, so that was a great game. Loved that game, that epic ending, flying into the sea. I mean, that was outstanding. So I don't know. I hadn't really thought of it ever since we did this period before. And when you get between movies, it's really, really difficult, I find. I'd rather get out where you have a lot more room to do things. And that's what I think is, you know, when you thought about 7, 8, 9, it's so exciting, is how there's the universe. You know, you can go forward. We always knew we were headed towards something in Clone Wars, which made Clone Wars really difficult. You know, we're headed towards this actually really depressing event. It's just really heavy when you're doing a series. It's like, how do I get these people to a resolution that you can have some type of joy with, even though, hey, the Empire took over. So, I don't know, I mean, if I had a good enough story, but I'd probably want to do it about a character that had largely nothing to do with the Luke Skywalker plot going on. You know, that's where you could find your niche. So a lot of people just think if there's a line of the films that they're going to go this way, right, vertically and continue. I would take a point before Empire and go off that way. And so, well, what was happening over there, and then maybe go up in time, you know. Just think of it, you know, literally expanding that timeline out. And there's all kinds of things happening in the galaxy concurrently. And it's interesting to me, like when we were planning the Clone Wars, that we could say, Ahsoka's doing this, but then Coruscant got attacked and the Chancellor got kidnapped. So suddenly you know. And as we went through those episodes and she was on her mission, she got a transmission from Anakin where he reports that Obi-Wan captures General Grievous when the Clone War is over, basically. So that was another moment in that 4-episode arc that told you exactly where you were compared to the film, which I found that was really interesting and exciting. Because as soon as you know that happens, if you're a savvy fan, audience member, you know the ticking clock for Order 66 is about to happen. So that's kind of, I learned a lot working that way in Clone Wars to make these concurrent stories and hopefully interesting crossovers. So you can think of big things the galaxy would know about. Like probably a lot of the galaxy knew when Alderaan blew up. A lot of the galaxy knew about the Death Star once it was revealed. And how would that affect everybody else, not who is doing it? So.
Yesterday we saw Bender for the first time, and 2 words stuck out, which was Bogan and Ashla, which go all the way back to like 75. What was the creative process for that?
It's very, very good. That's the extra points, extra credit for you. Very good. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but you know, if you're a Gryffindor, you're way ahead right now. So it's just, you know, lore that you know, and if you care to read that old stuff, Ashla was Ahsoka's original name. When we were creating the character, we were calling her Ashla. And then George changed it to Ahsoka.
So then he hired Ashley.
So then I hired Ashley to get back at him. Isn't that funny? We had named her before casting for sure, long before. But I wanted Bendu to feel like a character out of an ancient time. You don't know much about him. He's like a bombadil. You know, he's in the story and it's unclear what his role is or whose side he's on and what affects him, what doesn't. He seems to not play by the rules of everyone else in the story. And so bringing words in like Ashla and Bogan start to lose the fact that beyond what the Jedi and the Sith have organized around the Force, beyond the beliefs that they have put on it as a way, there is an even older way of thought. The Force exists, and this is important, beyond the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi and the Sith are a practice within the Force, a way of controlling it, a way of thinking, but they are not the be-all, end-all. And we got into that with the priestesses on the Yoda arc and with the Force gods of Mortis, where there are these beings out there that are ancient and wise, and look at the battle between the Jedi and Sith and their kind of self-importance as a bit childish to them. So there are these older definitions, and the older definitions to me just come out of George Lucas's mind. So the Force's origin, of course, is George Lucas's mind. So if you go back in time and you're talking about ancient things in the Force, you're talking about George's initial thoughts on it. Bendu is actually derivative of the Jedi Bendu, which is the full name of the Jedi a long time ago. So that's why Bendu seems to know a lot about them, about Kanan, that he's a Jedi, and he finds that kind of fun and cute. But, you know, obviously Tom Baker has his own agenda, and he's fantastic at being Bendu. Because I just laid out quickly what it was, and he was like, I understand these mythic stories, I love them. He's just Bendu, I don't know. You know, who knows? Is that the crossover point? He's the doctor, you know, and sometimes I get to call him that. You know, my favorite thing is when I Skype with him to do the report. Sometimes I've been here and done it, but I said, Tom, how are you doing today? And he'll say, I'm just radiant, David. And I'm like, I've never had someone say that before. But you know what?
Who else could say that?
He is radiant.
Yeah.
And just fantastic.
You've talked about how, due to the lead time, it's hard for you to bend to fan reactions. And one of the funnest things about being a Star Wars fan is debating reactions to little things. And I'm wondering, doing it so far in the past, is it like a lucky dip for each episode for how fans react? Like in the season finale of episode 2 of season 2, everyone just loved it. But then a thing like the heli sabers had a really strong pro and con reaction. Is that like a weird thing for something that you did so long ago that people picked that thing to debate about? Do you have an idea that's going to happen in advance?
You know, I get a micro reaction because of my crew. They're all, as I've said, fans of varying levels, and so anything we decide to do in story, you see these reactions. It's almost like some kind of scientific testing. So some of them like the heli sabers and some of them don't. I write the show, so I do it. If it's something that they really don't like, I have to change stuff. The writers will give you a first reaction, but then once we have a script, I read it out loud to the team that's going to execute it. So once Henry and I have finalized the script, I sit down with the episodic director and the story guys that are going to do all the shots, and I read it out loud and portray everything to them and explain the staging and shots I'd like and everything. But as I read it, I watch them. And you know, you can see your friends, and they're quiet and they kind of eye roll, or they kind of sink, and all the time I'm like, what, you think that's lame? And they get really odd. I'm like, no. If it's lame, I want to know now it's lame. If that doesn't work, I want to know. And they'll say, yeah, well, I didn't really like it. I'm like, okay, I feel the same way, I'd like to change it. You're trying to hit this thing as many times as you can to get it to be good before it's gone. That's everything we do. And on a TV show, I have a lot less kicks at the can, I call it. So you're just desperate to get it. Like the finale last year, I got it actually in front of as many eyeballs as possible at work that I could to get reactions, except probably the last 2 minutes. The last 2 minutes was no dialogue. That I left alone for the most part and let very few people see it. I let a couple people see it just to gauge their reaction. But for the most part, I left it alone. And then I brought Simon Kimberg and Kerry Hart in to look at it because I needed to make some final changes to it. I knew it, and I just couldn't see it. And I knew they would. And they did, and it really, I thought, made the thing excel to another level. So you're just always aware of it because the people that are working on it are very critical of their own work. So it's my job to let them know when, okay, yes, let's change it, or you're overreacting. Just because something's new doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We always need to push the threshold, you know, and, you know, I've always said, I didn't know there were snow walkers until I saw Empire. I didn't know there were speeder bikes until I saw Endor. You know, I didn't know an ATTE could go up a cliff until I decided it could. You know?
Well, that's cheating.
Well, the funny one was Henry Gover was like, I was like, you know, Henry, we should take this ground battle because it was level. I said, let's put it on the cliff. And Henry goes, can we do that? And I was like, yes, Henry. We can do that, you know, because now we're making a story, and you know, it's disappointing if people don't like it, but I don't know, that means I would have changed the way I did it. I mean, what can you do? Yeah, we thought it was a good idea at the time.
A quick follow-up, is there anything that people react so strongly to that you didn't think was going to be such a big thing that you're like, oh, I wish we had have put more of that in?
That is the more likely thing that happens, is that you go, oh, they really like that, I wish we had more of that. you know. But I don't. If we don't have more of it, it means it wasn't important to the story. You see, and so if we were just putting more of it in there because
That's the fan service.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
while it seems like that'd be a great idea, it probably wasn't. Like my crew was all about puffer pigs for a while. They loved that thing, and I was like, you know, guys, I really think you're
What are those?
kind of.
What?
They're the pigs that blow up like a balloon. For
Oh.
season one. And I was like, I really don't think that's where we want to go. I don't think. While they're funny in that episode, I don't think we want a bunch of that.
It was all puffer
And I
pigs,
think,
all.
and I think that was a wise decision.
I think so,
it was
too.
very cool.
So you know.
But there is a novel coming out about puffer pigs.
Origin story.
At least the balloon would be fun.
That would be great.
That would be great.
All right, so we have one last question. It's going to go to William.
So in the season premiere last night, it sounded like we heard Liam Neeson's voice. Obviously, Qui-Gon was a fairly large role in the Clone Wars, so we have to assume he's still going to be around in Rebels talking to other Jedi and helping them out.
I'm so intrigued. Where did you hear his voice? Where was
For Bendu last night.
Yeah, I didn't. That'd be news to Liam and I. No, I didn't. He's not.
Also, Leland Shee was tweeting about a certain redacted character being a redacted scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To go talk to Liam.
What is the Liam?
I don't know. No, I mean, in that the Force is one, and we are the Force way, I suppose, abstractly, yes, but not. It's not a design of it. And it wasn't an intention. I certainly didn't record him for it. So I'm gonna have to go watch that.
I was gonna say I'm
again.
gonna have to go watch it.
Yeah.
And figure out what you guys
Interesting.
Well, now that you've totally gotten Leland in trouble, we're going to wrap this up.
No. It's fine.
You guys, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
today.
you, guys. Yeah, I think so. I think that's right.
You were